Hello everybody, Samurai Carl here, doing a modern meta breakdown for Modern Infect. I've been playing this deck for the last couple weeks on MTGO. Really like this deck, so much that I'm actually going to take it to our local regional tournaments for Star City Games. And hopefully I'll do well with it in paper at a Star City Regional. So let's go over my current deck list. Um, Creatures, Blighted Agent, Glistener Elf, of course. This is my current 75. This deck got immensely better with Scale Up and Once Upon a Time, making it a little bit more consistent on turn 2 of killing your opponent. So let's move on to the creatures. So these are the infectors and some of the creatures that facilitate this deck's ability to, get that turn 2 win, turn 3 win. So you have Glistener Elf, Blighted Agent, and Noble Hierarch, and Inkmoth Nexus. I know Inkmoth is technically a land, but it is one of your infecting creatures, so it's really, really valuable. So, and Noble Hierarch, of course, for Exalted. If you get a couple of these on board, gives you more mana and more +1/+1 triggers from Exalted. So that's pretty nice. So let's move on to our pump spells. So these are pretty basic. The only really new card is Scale Up. Scale Up is really good, and in fact, the fact that it turns it into a 6/4 worm and still keeps in the Infect ability is really nice. Of course, you have Groundswell and Might of Volcrosa, been staples in Modern Infect for a while, and then Mutagenic Growth, which is great because it costs you no mana. You can play it for health. And then moving on to the next slide here, we're going to go over protection spells. So, Blossoming Defense has been in this list for a while, but it's a fairly new protection spell. Plus, it also does +2/+2 without a kicker. And then there's Vines of the Vastwood, which is a nice protection spell or pump spell if you want to give it that kicker cost. So moving on to utility. So I have Dismember as utility spell. It is a removal, but it's a one of in main board, so it's like a one of. And then Once Upon a Time, of course, great new card. Really great for fixing your hand if you're missing a creature or land. And then Distortion Strike, of course, if you're facing down a giant army of creatures you just can't get through, using Distortion Strike to kind of get, through that player's front line is great. And then sideboarding what to cut. So I don't know if my particular experience is I cut Once Upon a Time down to 1 or 2, and Spellskite or Dismember are flex spots for sure. So if I don't need removal, I'll cut the Dismember. If I don't need the protection from Spellskite, I'll cut the Spellskite. It's really hard to tell what to cut since this deck list is so tight and there's a lot of cards you just need to facilitate that turn 2, turn 3 win, that it's really hard to cut cards out of this deck, in my opinion. And I've not been playing Infect that long, so feel free to discuss that in the comments below and what you feel you end up cutting more often in this new Infect shell if you play Infect in Modern. So let's go to sideboarding options. We're going to go over Graveyard Hate. So this is what I've been using for Graveyard Hate. I've picked Grafdigger's Cage because it also stops some of the Coco decks as well. And then Ravenous Trap, of course, can cost you nothing if they're discarding a ton of cards. Great Graveyard Hate cards for your sideboard options for this deck. And then moving on to just utility spells, I have some counters with Spell Pierce and Mystical Dispute, and then some Artifact Hate with Force of Vigor and Vial of Summer has been useful in a lot of the control matchups or the blue-black matchups for sure. All right. And again, it's really hard to tell you what to cut in certain matchups, and with Modern being such a wide format, it's hard to break down each matchup because even deck lists vary so heavily that not every matchup of that certain deck is going to be the same, because there's different versions of Eldrazi Tron, there's different versions of Titan, Amulet Titan. Like, it's really dependent on your opponent, what they're going to side in. And with Modern being such a wide, broad format, it's your sideboard slots are very valuable, and you need kind of overall general utility spells to deal with certain matchups. So let's move on to removal and protection. So I have a Spellskite and a Dismember in my sideboard. If I need more removal, I'll add the Dismember. If I need more protection, I'll add the Spellskite. And then these are flex spots in my main board, so adding more or less depending on the situation. So, kind of brief overview. This deck is really fast. With the new Mulligan rule, it can be very consistently fast. With Scale Up, it can turn to kill a little bit more consistently. And then with as long as you keep your infect creatures alive, you can win the game pretty quickly. And being a linear deck, it is pretty resilient to removal with all the protection spells as well. And I'm hoping that this consistently fast enough to beat Amulet Titan at a regional tournament, just because that's the deck to beat right now. So who knows what's to come. I'm going to play this deck for a while. I used to play Tron, Eldrazi Tron, back in the day before I sold my collection, so I might be doing another deck tech or meta breakdown on one of those decks. So thanks for hanging out. I do stream 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if you want to stop by my Twitch stream, I'll have my link in the description below. Again, thanks for hanging out, and please like and share this video. Have a great day.